The Elmhurst Historical Museum, located in downtown Elmhurst, is proud to present award-winning exhibits for visitors of all ages. Our Adult Tea Time Talk series, family programs, and special events make learning about history interesting and fun. Admission is free, and on-site parking is available. Visit the Elmhurst Historical Museum soon. Call us today, or go to our website for the latest program details.
Visit elmhurst.org to explore the new City of Elmhurst website. Find out the latest Elmhurst news, pay utility bills and parking tickets, report concerns, and much more. Elmhurst.org is an ideal way to discover what Elmhurst offers your business, your family, your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to each of you, and welcome to Making History, Elmhurst History Through Leadership, a tribute to Tom Borchert. On behalf of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation and its entire board of directors, I am Ken Bartels, Senior Vice President and Director of the Community Bank of Elmhurst, and on behalf of the foundation, I will be your MC as we spend our time together on this memorable evening. The theme of Making Elmhurst History Through Leadership was carefully chosen by the planning committee to recognize Tom Borchert's amazing 40-year career and his unique impact on our community over that time. History is, after all, made by all of us one day at a time, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. In Tom's case, his history has been linked to all of us and has been linked with many others close to our community and the community itself. Tonight, we will recognize those relationships as we proceed through our program together. Let there be no question among all of us that in one brief, short, 1 month time, when the people of Elmhurst wake up and they say to themselves, something feels different today, that it will be up to us to let them know that what feels different is that Tom Borchert is not in City Hall looking out for them or for us. Very different indeed. A dramatic statement perhaps, but a truthful one nonetheless, and one that must be said. So, to begin, I introduce to you Tom's pastor for his comments and for our invocation, the Reverend Mike Trebrarin, the pastor of Elmhurst Yorkfield Presbyterian Church. Following Pastor Mike, our dinners will be served, and then our program. Again, thank you for being here.
Later this evening, a number of people are going to get up and they're going to say a bunch of really nice things about Tom. So as his pastor, I felt that it was my duty to keep him humble, at least here in the early going. And to share with you a few of the things that have really kind of bothered me about Tom over the years. So here are sort of 3 sad and irksome things that I would like to share with you about Tom, not in any particular order, okay? So here's the first one. Tom is a masochist. He personally enjoys to inflict pain upon himself. Now, some of you might have suspected that of anyone who would serve the city of Elmhurst for 40 years and had to read some of the things that he had to about himself in the papers, truly was a masochist. But I have proof that's of an even more sad and tragic nature. Because I have calculated that over the last 15 years, Tom had to listen to over 700 sermons that I've given. At first, I just thought he was tough. I thought that he had incredible endurance, that maybe he just had superhuman patience. But over the years, I've come to believe that, in fact, he's just a very sick person. He likes pain, and that's all there is to it. Second thing about Tom. Unlike other Presbyterians, Tom has a hard time keeping his faith to himself. It's irksome. As often as I pointed out to him that politicians are just supposed to trot out their faith at election time and then put it back in storage afterwards, he just doesn't seem to get that. He thinks that because he's not actually an elected official, that doesn't apply. He even lets me twist his arm from time to time, and he gets up in worship and talks about his faith. Talks about his faith journey. And for years, he's been part of a small group that studies and prays together and talks about what God might be calling them to do in their families and community and in their jobs. On top of that, I have to tell you that for over a decade now, Tom's been a part of a handful of folk who gather for prayer and meditation at 5:30 in the morning on Wednesdays. Now, what's really great about this is that we read these 4 lectionary readings, and we always stick Tom with the Old Testament lesson. You know why we do that? Because there's nothing more hilarious than watching somebody at 5:30 in the morning trying to get through some of those Old Testament names, you know? Jehoshaphat, Shealtiel, Zerubbabel. I thought that would scare him off, but he just keeps coming. I tell you, the guy's a masochist. Okay, here's the third thing about Tom. He doesn't know how to take a proper vacation. What I mean is that he is vacationally challenged. He is clueless, for instance, about where you're supposed to go for a vacation. Does he pick Las Vegas or some beach in Mexico? No, not at all. Instead, he decides that a vacation for him is to go on a church mission trip with his wife, Joni, and that they're going to go to Mississippi after the hurricane at Katrina. And then after there's flooding in Iowa, he goes, well, I think we'll go there too, and we'll rehab some homes. The guy's kind of pathetic, see? What kind of vacation is that? By the way, I just would like to point this out, that Tom, as you know, is going to have a lot of time on his hands here shortly. So if you need some drywall installed, all you really need to do is to get your house declared a disaster zone. And Tom will be over there. And by the way, you notice he's pretty tall. He doesn't even need a ladder to do drywall. Now, there are a lot of other things that are sad and pathetic and troubling about Tom. And you can see me or Joni afterwards for a full list. But you kind of get the idea. He's really kind of irritating, especially for a pastor, because he doesn't leave me a lot to work with. He actually talks the talk and walks the walk. He's a man of integrity in a world that's fast losing the meaning of the word. He's kind and thoughtful. He exhibits a natural diplomacy and grace under fire. And instead of pretending, he really does try to live out his faith. Somewhere along the line, he missed that memo that said, it's all about me. Obviously, this poor guy needs your prayers. So if you would join me now, let's pray together. Loving, gracious, and almighty God, we thank you tonight for all those who serve you through service to others, whose own personal lives have taken a back seat to serving country, city, community. We thank you especially this evening for Tom Borchert and his 40 years of service to the city of Elmhurst. We thank you for his integrity, commitment, loyalty, passion, and grace. And we thank his family for sharing him with us through emergencies, missed dinners, late-night meetings. As we celebrate Tom's life as city manager, we also pray for him in retirement, that he might enjoy this much-deserved rest, and that he continue to find opportunities to share the knowledge and wisdom that you've helped him acquire over the years. Lord, as we come now to eat this meal together, We thank you for faithful friends, committed colleagues, and sisters and brothers working to make this world a better place. And for the man that we have come here to celebrate tonight, who has modeled all of that and so much more for each of us here. In Christ's name we pray. And all God's people say, amen.
Tonight we honor Tom Borchert, Elmhurst leader, for 40 years of service and dedication. Tom has been in the midst of our community since 1971. Frankly, it's hard to remember Elmhurst when he wasn't around. But we can remember. In fact, we have video evidence of some of Tom's exploits over the years. In February of 1983, we find Tom and Mayor Abner Gannett discussing the finer points of remote water meters. What's more important, though, is to notice Tom's hair color, mustache, and glasses. Remember these.
Tom, I see on the table one of our new outside water meters. Why don't you put it in your hands and show it to our community and tell us what this is going to do and what we're going to be doing.
Yes, Abner. The Public Works Department has started this past year with the approval of the City Council a major replacement program.
Why don't you put it down? You're going to get tired. Everybody's seen it.
From January 1985, with Police Chief Bert Munson and Pat Larson. Is that the same shirt and tie? For sure, it's the same mustache and glasses.
I'm Tom Borchert, City Manager of the City of Elmhurst. With me today at the Elmhurst Municipal Building is the Elmhurst Police Chief Bert Munson and the DUI Program Coordinator, Mrs. Pat Larson. DUI stands for Driving Under the Influence.
In June 1985, Tom welcomes everyone to the new Public Works Garage, something that he'd get to do again in his career, as he talks of excellence for Elmhurst. You probably will notice the same mustache and glasses, too.
Hello, my name is Tom Borchert, City Manager of the City of Elmhurst. I'm here today at the Elmhurst Municipal Garage, where the Public Works Department is celebrating National Public Works Week by having an open house for the Elmhurst community. Public Works Department perceives this day as an opportunity to show the community the many, many excellent services which the Public Works Department provides the community. Elmhurst Public Works Department, as the other departments of the city, have adopted a theme of excellence for Elmhurst.
Unfortunately, some rain fell during Tom's tenure. He was outstanding in his response, however, and never more when he talked about neighbors helping neighbors from footage in October 1988. And, oh yeah, you'll notice, well, you know by now what to notice.
Tremendous widespread, really, community support to neighbors helping neighbors, the Red Cross after the event, the massive cleanup operation. The Public Works Department spent weeks doing 16-hour shifts, working in some cases 24 hours around the clock to help the neighborhoods get cleaned up.
A clip from December 1988, in one of the few really low points in Tom's Elmhurst career. At the same time, some things never change.
There's a lot of commotion going on, a story that we don't know exactly what's happening, but it appears that our city manager, Tom Borchert, is being handcuffed by a police officer and led. Tom, what's happening? Can you talk to us, Tom?
I don't know. There's no charges yet. We'll wait to see here.
Tom, we'll follow along in and see if we can find out just exactly what is happening here. What's happening?
Your name, please.
There's got to be a mistake.
Your name, please.
What is this? My name's Borchert.
You're Tom Borchert?
Tom Borchert.
You've been accused of being 59 seconds late in being a one-minute manager.
Right.
How do you
and
plead?
I need to get bailed out. And I
Got to be twice as long as it should be.
He'd only.
By October of 1992, we had a new City Hall plaza to dedicate, and Tom was again our host with all his usual appointments.
It's a beautiful evening in a beautiful setting. Beautiful flowers here this evening, and I think this is going to be the setting for our Christmas trees of the future and future picnics and activities. The plaza does allow a lot of free flow and kind of absorbs the crowd.
Two-way traffic in the city center, Tom's favorite subject. From this video from August 1998. And a change for us to ponder as well. For the better, you decide.
And flip from a two-way street system to a one-way street system to make it better. So this has been going on, this review, this evaluation, this analysis of which is better, this way or that way, as the invitation to this meeting suggested.
In this final spot from March of 2011, we see Tom as he closes a legendary career in a clip from an Elmhurst Now program.
What will you miss the most as you stop being city manager after such a long tenure? And what's next?
Well, I don't think there's any question I'm going to miss the wonderful people that I've worked with at various levels. The other folks in other jurisdictions that we work with, but the team that is assembled that serves Elmhurst City Hall, that work team has become a family away from family, and all of those wonderful relationships with the Elmhurst community I'll miss the most.
Congratulations, Tom, and sincere thanks from a grateful Elmhurst for all your efforts. We thank Elmhurst, our kind of town, for putting together that video as we begin tonight's program. And we also thank Tom, of course, for being our unknowing but willing star. Now, while Tom might dispute his star power, I say, who cares? He's leaving. So I do want to follow up to that video for just a moment, though, and we'll do just a simple show of hands. Tom, I think this is fair, don't you? Mustache? No mustache. Pretty strong vote for the status quo. And Tom, personally, I need to talk to you about whoever dyes your hair. I need a little help in that area. Now, we want to continue on with the case for Tom's star status. And we have three guests who will help us do that. Tom's friends and associates, who will provide us both with some introductions and some presentations. And the first of these is the Assistant City Manager and the Fire Chief of Elmhurst, Mike Cobb.
Thanks, Ken. I mean, it's a real honor to be up here and be part of the program, to honor 40 years of dedication to the city of Elmhurst for Tom. I mean, 40 years is a long time, and I think a lot of you, to illustrate how long 40 years is, you saw we had our original fire truck when Tom started out there tonight. We refer to that as an antique. Not you, Tom. And the new fire engine that we're using today as Tom retires. And technology has changed, Tom. But 40 years is an unbelievable amount of time. I've lived in Elmhurst most of my life. I remember vaguely that cold February 1971 when my kindergarten teacher got the class together to tell us about the new hotshot engineer the city just hired. So, anyway. No, I've really had the honor to work with Tom for many years. In the last 2 years as Assistant City Manager, I worked really close with Tom. And it's been a pleasure to work with someone who's really strongly based in faith and family, and whose entire life has been guided by those values. And it's been just a pleasure to work with Tom. You know, Tom has influenced my life and the life of many people. Look around this room. There's not a person in this room whose life hasn't been touched by Tom, and every one of us is better because of it. So thank you, Tom. I want to end with a small quote that actually Tom sent to me many years ago in his famous, or maybe infamous, birthday cards he sends out to all the employees. And it was a quote that was he sent from Winston Churchill. And it's a real short quote, but I think it describes a lot about Tom. And it was, we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give. Tom, it's a wonderful life. So thank you for being a friend, and congratulations and good luck. All right, now I'm pleased to introduce to you the DuPage County Board members Paul Fickner and Jeff Reddick, representing the DuPage County Board and the Chairman Dan Cronin for a resolution. Jeff and Paul.
As one of the many elected officials that's been fortunate enough to serve with Tom Borchert during his tenure as city manager for the City Council of Elmhurst, I want to thank you for your professionalism and patience in helping us get through the many important issues of the day on the City Council. I think the City Council collectively made the right decisions based on not just the information presented, but how you presented it. Again, very professionally and patient. We are better leaders because of it, and the town is a much better community because of it. So thank you very much. Jeff Reddick from the County Board as well would like to read a proclamation from the County Board.
Thanks, Paul. I've had the opportunity to know Tom since really I moved to town. I've had the benefit of serving the people of Elmhurst on the County Board for the last 6 years, and I can just say that working with Tom has been a pleasure, and it's been tremendously helpful to allow us to better serve the people of Elmhurst and of DuPage County. Earlier, our pastor spoke and talked about how Tom had sat through and listened. Well, he kind of alluded to the fact that he was listening to 700 sermons. I don't necessarily think that might be the case, because on numerous occasions I believe he was actually thinking about the flood map, because right after church he'd run out and grab me and give me his thoughts on the flood map and what the county was doing wrong. Maybe if you would have just prayed about it, it would have taken care of itself. But Tom, you've been a tremendous asset to the city and to entire DuPage County, and to that end, I'd like to read the resolution from the DuPage County Board. Whereas Tom Borchert has been a tireless advocate on behalf of the city of Elmhurst, serving the city as a dedicated public servant since 1971, and whereas Thomas Borchert received a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Valparaiso University in 1970, and after graduation, worked for 1 year as a civil engineer for People's Gas, Light, and Coke Company in Chicago, before beginning his career with the City of Elmhurst as an Assistant Director of Public Works in 1971. And whereas Thomas Borchert was soon promoted to Director of Public Works in 1973 and served in that capacity until he was promoted again in 1981 to serve as Assistant City Manager before his appointment as Elmhurst City Manager in 1984. And whereas during his tenure as City Manager, Thomas Borchert spearheaded the revitalization of the downtown area, planned and coordinated the construction of new municipal facilities, including a modern city hall, police station, 2 state-of-the-art fire stations, plus an 80,000 square foot contemporary public library, ranked as the #1 library in Illinois within its category and among the top 5 best public libraries in the nation. And whereas Thomas Borchert worked to enhance the professional level of city staff, utilized technology to increase the efficiency of city government, upgraded the city's infrastructure and transportation network, converted the city from well water supply system to Lake Michigan water, and developed a number of innovative programs to support local businesses. And whereas Tom Borchert always sought to work in a collaborative manner with the city's other units of government in order to share services and to create partnerships whenever possible, ever mindful of the value of the taxpayers' dollars. And whereas, thanks to Thomas Borchert's hard work, daily devotion, vision, and commitment to the citizens of Elmhurst for 40 years, the city has become one of the country's most desirable communities to live and work. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the DuPage County Board, and with the unanimous consent of the DuPage County Board, do hereby congratulate Thomas P. Borchert upon his retirement from the City of Elmhurst after 40 exemplary years, and extend our appreciation to Thomas P. Borchert for his many contributions to the City of Elmhurst and DuPage County. And be it further resolved, that we wish Thomas Borchert and his wife of 36 years, Joni, and their 4 children, Catherine, Christopher, Mary Beth, Ryan, their son-in-laws Justin and Joel, and daughters-in-law April, and especially their 6 grandchildren. Geez, you gave them all the names. Adeline, Colin, Caleb, Greta, Lane, and Carson. Many years of laughter, good health, and happiness in the future. Dated the May 13, 2011.
Thanks, guys. For a special presentation from the Illinois House of Representatives, I am honored to introduce to you 2 former Elmhurst aldermen who worked with Tom, now state representatives in Springfield, Dennis Rebeletti and Chris Nibel. Dennis and Chris.
You know, I was thinking about Elmhurst without Tom Borchert. And it's hard for me to do that because as a lifelong resident, Tom started as a city employee when I was 2 years old. But Tom, it was truly an honor and a privilege to get to work with you after running as a write-in candidate and becoming an alderman from the 2nd Ward, with which we're all here right now, and to, as a Valpo alum, see all the hard work and dedication that you've given to this great community, and that I've been part of the lifestyle here and part of the quality of life that we all talk about. As somebody who's been able to be part of the community, to be able to grow up here with great schools, great city services, it's been an honor to have a chance to work with you. A man of integrity, a man who cares about the process, and a man who cares about the people. And as a Republican state representative, it's very hard to pass legislation in Springfield right now, but I think we were able to pass one of our most meaningful pieces of legislation that I shared with Representative Nibel, and I will let the freshman legislator speak next.
I appreciate that opportunity, Representative Rebeletti. I'm going to spare everybody here tonight going through a second resolution, which is going to be very similar to what the County Board resolution was. And I'm just going to offer a few remarks, if that's okay with you, Representative Rebeletti. Thank you. And I appreciate Dennis taking the lead in putting this together. It's a nice occasion. There's been a couple allusions tonight to the concept of Tom's patience in sitting through 700 sermons from his pastor. And I think both Dennis and I would agree, and I think we have the opportunity and the right to say as former members of the City Council, that some may say, and a good argument could be made, perhaps for many people in this room, that sitting through 700 sermons pales in comparison to sitting through some of our meetings on the City Council. Tom, I'm gonna spare telling you where I was 40 years ago. But I do want to offer a couple remarks from my heart, Tom. And if you notice, I walked in and I went up to him, and I asked Tom for a city pin once, and he gave me a character counts pin, and I'm wearing it tonight. And I wear it every time I can, and because I think character does matter. And Tom, you are an inspiration in character. You're an inspiration in leadership. You're the kind of person, Tom, where it's easy to stand up in a room full of your friends and family and say what a wonderful person you are. but it's equally easy to stand up in an auditorium full of 800 residents in Bryan Middle School and stand up for you. I mean, you're just that kind of leader where there's no difficulty in us attesting to how strong of a person you are. Tom, there are a few people in this business who serve as mentors for young people like Dennis and I as we work our way up through the ranks. And I meant that sincerely, Tom. You are a mentor. I think you're the kind of person that we look up to and say, if we could be like him at some point and have a career that reflects as well upon us and our family and really, moves the community forward as you have. And I look out here and I see you surrounded by your family, and I think a lot as I leave my family down in Springfield. It's wonderful that they're here to support you. And so you deserve everything you have coming to you. It's been an honor to serve with you, and thank you for teaching me so much. There is a resolution here, and we will give it to you, but I will spare everybody from reading it. So.
Tom, I'm confused. When we were talking about the program and we were talking about your pastor, you said 7,000 sermons. I must have just got that wrong. Our next presenter is the Director of Finance and Administration for the City of Elmhurst, Marilyn Gaston.
Thank you, Ken. Tom, I also congratulate you on your excellent career with the City of Elmhurst. I have valued your leadership, your integrity, your unwavering support, and most of all, your friendship. Now, I have a proclamation to read from the Illinois Senate. State of Illinois, Senate recognition, the Illinois Senate of the 97th General Assembly of the State of Illinois acknowledges City Manager Tom Borchert, Elmhurst, Illinois, in recognition of 40 years of distinguished service to the community and calls for the commemoration of a successful career and further extends its wishes for happiness, health, and continued success in all future endeavors. Offered by Carol Pankow, State Senator, John J. Cullerton, Senate President, Jelaine Rock, Secretary of the Senate. Now, a letter from the Office of the Governor. Dear Mr. Borchert, as Governor, and on behalf of the people of the land of Lincoln, it is my pleasure to congratulate you on your retirement. For the past 40 years, you have provided the residents of the City of Elmhurst with your honorable and dedicated service. It is now time to look back and reflect on your many accomplishments. The work you have done throughout the years as city manager has undoubtedly created a lasting impact. Your professionalism has earned you the respect of your colleagues, and the mark that you leave behind will serve as a foundation for the future. Most importantly, in all that you have done, your work ethic has exemplified the dedication to service the citizens of the state have come to expect and deserve. You have represented the state of Illinois admirably. I wish you a healthy, happy, and rewarding retirement, surrounded by many family members and friends. You have my respectful gratitude for an inspired career of public service spanning 4 decades. Sincerely, Pat Quinn, Governor.
Our final guest is the chairman of the board for the Community Bank of Elmhurst, a board that Tom serves on as a director, William C. Bill Gooch.
Before I start my little presentation, I noticed that another speaker here a little later on is the former mayor, Tom Marcucci. So any of you that need to use the restroom, now's probably a good time. You can go ahead, Tom. This isn't that good. Tom, this isn't an audience participation. This is more like a speech. He thinks he's in the boardroom still. Anytime anybody leaves a job, he's performed so well and so long that the people coming in will notice a lot of things. One of those things is the number of duties and functions that get done every day and nobody knows about. You will find a lot of those following Tom Borchert. I kind of searched around a little bit to think of possibly an analogy or something of Tom that could be related a little bit, and I came up with this. I think that Tom Borchert has been, to me anyway, and I think to many of you, a foundation. And a foundation is what is set there, which we build from. Like when you're building a big house and you see it, you say, that's a nice house. You don't usually say, boy, I bet it's a great foundation. But having said that, if the foundation weren't there, the house wouldn't be built. And if the foundation wasn't run or done properly, it would be in a state of disrepair. So I think a foundation is one of the nicest things we can say, Tom, and we mean it. I hope that Tom, when he gets through here or retires, that one of the things that he will do is he and Joan will ride around town and in his own unassuming way just smile and say, I was part of doing this. I was part of the building of Elmhurst, that building, that parking deck, that street. I think that it's extremely important that we notice that even though a man can work 40 years, he is really known as much for his family. And I think the family that he has here is a real testimony to the balance that Tom has in his life, a balance between work and family. I cannot let this go without saying his wife, Joan, that they are a great team, and for all of you, I doubt that the men out here know what the women go through when we all come home and we're stressed out and tired and all of that, and what they have to put up with. So, Joni, well done. Tom, thank you for your patience, understanding, your people skills, and your work ethic. You are a true, pleasant professional, and thank you. I did want to mention one quick thing here that, as Ken mentioned, Tom is on the board of directors of our bank, and I was going to give Tom a few jabs, but I then realized that I work for him, and I really don't want to put my job in jeopardy, so I'm going to let that go for this time, for now. I do have 3 things to read here. The first one is from Peter Roscom. I'm writing to congratulate you on your upcoming retirement. This is truly a special occasion that deserves recognition. Over the past 27 years, Elmhurst has benefited significantly from your leadership as city manager. As a second individual in Elmhurst history to serve in this capacity, you have set great example for the future. With your involvement, Elmhurst has continued to provide exceptional services and opportunity. Thank you for your loyalty to the community, both as city manager and longtime resident. I wish you every happiness in your well-deserved respite. Signed, Peter J. Roscom, Member of Congress. This is from Senator Durbin. Dear Mr. Borchert, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to extend my most sincere congratulations on your retirement after a remarkable 40 years of government service with the City of Elmhurst. During your time with City of Elmhurst, you've distinguished yourself as a city manager committed to producing exceptional results. Your perseverance and remarkable leadership have significantly contributed to Elmhurst's status as a community known for both its outstanding city services and a high quality of life. You must be proud of your efforts and achievements dedicated as a dedicated civil servant. Once again, my warmest wishes to you on this important occasion, and I wish you the best luck of the future to come. Signed, Richard J. Durbin, United States Senator. I thought I only had 2 things to read, but there's one more thing, and I'm not even sure I understand it. It's a quote. It's a one-sentence quote, but I'll read it to you. But it's a quote. My name is Tom Borchert, and I approve of those letters. End of quote.
Tom obviously served with many elected officials over his 40 years and with 7 Elmhurst mayors. Mayors Weigel and Fick, Gannett, Quinn, Garrigus, Marcucci, and DeCiani. This evening, as always, it's a special privilege to introduce to you the mayor of Elmhurst, our top local official, a person of strength, a man loyal to his roots, and an individual committed to leadership, unity, and solutions, now and into the future. Please welcome the Mayor of Elmhurst, the Honorable Pete DeCiani.
Thank you, Ken. Before I get started, I do want to actually recognize some of those mayors, because many of those mayors are here. Abner Gannett, Mayor Abner Gannett is in the room today. Abner? Mayor Chuck Garrigus is in the room tonight as well. Mayor Garrigus. And the reason why my speech is going from 15 minutes to 30 seconds, Mayor Tom Marcucci, who is in the room. You know, it's been a privilege and an honor over the last 2 years to work with Tom Borchert. This morning, as I opened the paper and I had a cup of coffee, I looked at the pictures of the underpass, the Palmer Underpass, which I moved there in 1976, and that was one of the first things that this town had done under his leadership. And I mean, people were dying at the railroad tracks trying to get to Elmhurst Hospital. And you know, this guy, and it was a controversial thing. This guy led the charge and got that underpass built, and you know, it's just been, you know, those are the things that just make a community valuable and unique and quality of life. Representative Reboletti, former classmate of mine from Mary Queen of Heaven, we talk about these things. This man has made the quality of life what it is in Elmhurst. You look at the new hospital, you look at the new fire stations, you look at parking decks. The list goes on and on. So. And one thing I got to tell you, the old mayor, Marcucci, told me. Oh, I say. I apologize. The mature mayor was that, Mayor, there's no book on how to be a mayor. So if you ever need my help, I'm always here. And the first 2 years have been challenging.
the first time since 1987, I believe, that the letter of declaration was declared in the city of Elmhurst, was declared last year. And that day, I'm looking around this town that I called Elmhurst since I was 9, saying, oh my God, this can't happen again. And I'm calling Tom Marcucci up saying, Mayor, I need help. Well, he's in Italy. But the steady hand that kept the day calm, as I had residents call my home. My wife said, these people are, you know, unbelievably stressed out. Tough messages to get. The steady hand at the wheel was Tom Borchert. And he kept me calm because I was running around neighborhoods trying to help people and see what we can do, and we're, you know, deploying emergency people all over the town. And but this man was like unbelievably calm. We had our EOC opened. He was like, this is how we're going to do it. It's all we're prepared for this. Unfortunately, you know, but fortunately, because we are a city and we are a city that works and is prepared, we handled it. We handled it with pride and dignity. That meeting that we did at Bryan Junior High, that afternoon, Alderman Kennedy and I were sitting in my conference room, planning how we were going to lead that meeting. And City Manager Borchert walked in the room and he said, "I'm leading the meeting." And I said, and Alderman Kennedy and I were like, "No, City Manager, thank you, but I think we should lead the meeting because I'm the mayor, he's the Public Works Chairman." Tom said, "I'm leading the meeting. I've dealt with this before. It's my problem. You're going to back me up, but I'm taking the heat." And he took the heat. Unbelievable. And those people vented, and we had an event that they say was a 1 in a 500-year event at our town. Unbelievably calm, a leader, integrity. I've seen people go off on this man, and he keeps his cool. Sometimes when I can't keep my cool, but he teaches me how to do that. So, Tom, I can't tell you how much it's been a pleasure to work with you over the last 2 years, how much you've taught me. I'm thankful as a pretty much a lifelonger to grow up in a town that you've made a better place. Your wife Joni and your entire family, just beautiful. So with that, I have a proclamation to read. Okay. Whereas Thomas P. Borchert has provided professional and civic leadership experience to the city of Elmhurst, whereas Tom has served as an assistant director of public works in 1971, became director of public works in 1973, and as the assistant city manager in 1981 before becoming the city manager for the city of Elmhurst in 1984. I was a freshman at York, or senior at York. Whereas Tom has served on various boards throughout his career, including the International City Management Association, Metropolitan Section of Illinois City Management Association, Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry, DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, Elmhurst City Center, Director on DuPage Communication Board, Board of Director of the Community Bank of Elmhurst, past member of the Young Life Committee of Eastern DuPage, and member of the Elder Yorkfield Presbyterian Church in Elmhurst. Whereas Tom received his Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering at Valparaiso University in Valparaiso, Indiana, and completed additional coursework at Northwestern University, Midwest College of Engineering, College of DuPage, ICMA University, and attended CEU workshops. And whereas Tom has given entirely to the city of Elmhurst and to the numerous Elmhurst organizations through his dedication, commitment, service, and selflessness, and his support and assistance to others and in the neighboring communities in Cook and DuPage County. Now, therefore, I, Peter P.D.C. Andy III, Mayor of the City of Elmhurst, do hereby declare May 13, 2011 as Thomas P. Borchert Day in the city of Elmhurst and congratulate him on his upcoming retirement. Thank you, Tom.
I don't know what it is with the flickering light up here. I figure Commonwealth Edison is getting even. There is another mayor in the room and a departure from your program for a special award from the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. Please welcome the Mayor of Woodridge, the Honorable William Murphy.
Good evening. As was announced, I'm not a mayor from Elmhurst. I'm a mayor from Woodridge, and so my remarks will be brief because I'm not looking for any votes here tonight. But good evening. I love Elmhurst. I was born and raised in Elmhurst, and it will always be the town that I take a great deal of pride in and a town that I love. But that Elmhurst pride and love that all of us share only comes as a result of leadership, not just from elected officials, but from the city manager's office. But the leadership that was exemplified here in the city of Elmhurst extended beyond the boundaries of Elmhurst to all of the communities, not only in DuPage County, but throughout the state of Illinois. It is my personal privilege this evening on behalf of the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference to extend our congratulations, but also to provide an exceptional award that the Mayors and Managers Conference does not issue on an annual basis. Tom served on the board of directors of the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. He was director of our Budget and Operations Committee. He also served on the Legislative Committee, the Long Range Planning Committee, the Transportation Committee, the Regulatory Issues Committee, and the Planning Committee. Because of those major contributions, DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference has chosen to bestow on Tom our highest award, the 2011 Intergovernmental Cooperation Award. Please join with me in congratulating Tom.
Just out of idle curiosity, were there any committees that you didn't serve on? I didn't think so. It was last November when the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation began to work with Tom and Joni to fashion our evening tonight. And interestingly, Tom's initial reaction was typically modest when he said, "Do you think anybody will come?" And he kept doing that on a regular basis. Well, Tom, a whole bunch of folks did come, and we wouldn't have missed it for the world. On behalf of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, please recognize its president, Tom Klein, and Brian Berghager, director of the Elmhurst Historical Museum.
Thanks, Ken. So I think I'm like one of the only people that isn't from Elmhurst here. Anybody else who isn't from Elmhurst originally? Okay, we got a few. Okay, good. Now, Tom, I've never seen those pictures of you from way back before, but I'd say that you look fabulous now. So, my name's Tom Klein. As the president of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, let's see if we can move this up here a little bit. Tom, I know you're going to need it a lot higher, right? Here, as president of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, and on behalf of our board, we're really glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're here to thank Tom for all his years of service for the city of Elmhurst. Now, I don't know Tom very well since I'm not from Elmhurst. I can't say where I was 40 years ago, but there's a couple things I'm guessing that Tom probably didn't like. One is, I think probably he didn't like missing Monday Night Football, Big Monday, because he was always at city council meetings on Monday. Tom, maybe? Okay. The other thing I think he doesn't like, and was kind of alluded to, you know, when Mother Nature kind of does some things to city services, I don't think he liked those. But I do know two things that he did like, or does like. One is the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, because we advocate and we educate and we fundraise on behalf of the Elmhurst Historical Museum. And the other thing that I know, thank you, All right. The other thing I know he likes is Yorkfield Presbyterian Church food pantry, right? Okay. So, and try to say that 5 times, right? Yorkfield, anyways. So, so we know he likes that. Now, Tom has been a tremendous supporter for the Elmhurst Historical Museum over the years, and for that we are very grateful. He and Joni have also been a very big supporter and very involved in the food pantry at their church. So in honor of your service, your togetherness, our foundation will be giving a donation to the food pantry. So with that, thank you again very much for joining all of us. There were a lot of people that really wanted to come to this, Tom. Thank you all for joining to celebrate Tom. Now let me turn it over to Brian Berghager, the director of the Elmhurst Historical Museum, with some news that we're pretty excited to share. Brian?
Thank you, Tom. I have the great privilege to present the Alban F. Bates Jr. Service Award on behalf of the Elmhurst Historical Museum. But before I do that, I'd like to offer my thanks this evening to all of you, as well as to the many sponsors and donors of tonight's event. I also thank Tom Borchert. Tom, it's been my great fortune to have you as my boss. By example and by your words, you encourage me and other employees to do our personal best to do this every day, and for that, I thank you. This truly is a fitting occasion to present the Bates Award. Mr. Bates was known as Pete by his many friends, and he shared a special attachment to the museum and to the city of Elmhurst. His great-grandfather settled here in the 1840s, setting up the first post office in town, plotting the first subdivision, and organizing the first school district. An aunt and an uncle built the Gloss Mansion, the building that today serves as the home of Elmhurst Historical Museum. Well, Mr. Bates served the museum in a formal capacity on the Elmhurst Historical Commission from 1984 to 2003. In 1992, he was a founding member of the Elmhurst Historical Museum Foundation, the organization known today as the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. While his tenure on these boards was indicative of his sincere and very deep-felt commitment to the museum, it was through actions that he personified the idea of service. He was a tireless advocate for the museum's mission. He was inquisitive, always curious, always looking for something new. He was generous with his time, his companionship, his knowledge, and his humor. He was sincere, and he served unselfishly and freely. So this award, the Alban F. Bates Jr. Service Award, was established in the memory of Pete to recognize others like him who serve unselfishly as friend, advisor, and champion of the Elmhurst Historical Museum. So Tom, this evening, I'm very pleased to present to you the Alban F. Bates Jr. Service Award. Congratulations.
This is like a wedding reception without the cake. There are a number of special items that I wish to note for you now. Brian just mentioned the sponsors in your program. All of those sponsors represent 100% pure gifts to the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, and we very much appreciate those. The program also notes some other very excellent support, a tree in Wilder Park to be dedicated in Tom's name near the Veterans Memorial by the Elmhurst Park District. And also, obviously, the underwriters, which allowed so many other good things to happen this evening. We very much appreciate those. I have a letter to read from Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare. Mr. Tom Borchert, dear Tom, on behalf of everyone at Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare, we would like to express our deepest and sincerest gratitude for your 4 decades of devoted and exemplary service to the city of Elmhurst. Your collaboration and partnership with our organization have been invaluable over the years. You have been instrumental in facilitating the growth and expansion of the Borchert campus, as well as the development and construction of our new main campus, scheduled to open just 42 days from today. Continually balancing the needs of the city and its residents, we have always appreciated your leadership, creativity, responsiveness, and knowledge. Please know that your contribution to the city of Elmhurst, its residents, and Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare will benefit the community for generations to come. You have made Elmhurst a better place to live, and you have helped make it possible for our hospital to better serve the healthcare needs of the community. Best of luck to you in your retirement years. You will be missed. With warm regards, Leo F. Franza, CEO, Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare, and W. Peter Daniels, President, Elmhurst Memorial Healthcare. The Planning Committee is also listed for you in your program, and Tom, I have to tell you, from the time this group came together, the sole purpose and focus of the individual's efforts was to make this a memorable way to send you off into retirement. And headed by Brian Berghager, who was just up here, I would like the Planning Committee to stand for your recognition, ladies and gentlemen. On your tables, I'm sure many of you have found these, there are clipboards and scrapbook pages where each and every one of you are encouraged to write a message to Tom and Joni. Leave those on the table when you're exiting later this evening, and we will collect them and put them in a scrapbook for a presentation to the Borcherts at a later date. And the Elmhurst Archive Town crew, videotaping this for cable television later in the month, will also be videotaping any of you who wish to provide a video message for the Borcherts. They'll be over in that corner when the program has concluded. Lastly, I want to clarify for you something that is always extremely important at these times of events, and that is who goes home with the centerpiece. Hey, this is vital stuff, because at the end of the evening, you don't want, great distress coming over the room. So, the person with the birthday closest to Tom's last day in the office gets the centerpiece, and that is June the 10th. June the 10th. So just take like 15 seconds or so and get this settled. It never fails. It's going to be a discussion point. Someone will lie. June the 10th. Okay, enough. Enough. You've had time to figure it out. And that being done, I'd like you to focus your attention back to our keynote speaker. Our next speaker is no stranger. He served for 16 years as our city's mayor, and therefore served with Tom for many, many meaningful years and in many, many meaningful ways. Together, they proved to be quite a dynamic duo, although who was Batman and who was Robin, I will leave to you. And tights are definitely not an option. Leadership in municipal government, leadership in business, leadership in the nonprofit world, leadership in education depend upon and demand responsibility, reason, and relationships to always be in strong supply. Without them, everything else becomes much more difficult. To be sure, the bonds between these two Toms will always be significant and sincere. I present to you the Vice President for Marketing at Ganella Baking Company, Tom Marcucci.
Well, you know, when you're the ex-mayor, you come right on after the explanation of who gets the centerpiece. Pete, this is in your future somewhere out there. I need to tell you, I am just delighted to be here this evening. This is a wonderful evening, a wonderful event, and seeing all of you come out to express your appreciation to Mr. Borchert for his job that he has done for each, think about this really, each and every one of us in this room have benefited from this man's 40 years of service in our community. Everyone. The really good thing about that is that there are 43,500 residents of Elmhurst who are not here this evening, and they have benefited as well. And that's all to Mr. Borchert's benefit. I was called a couple of months ago and asked if I would come out to a Elmhurst Heritage event and join the group for the evening, and I said, well, of course. And Mayor, would you, they still sometimes call me Mayor when they slip of the tongue. Mayor, would you be willing to say a few words about Tom Borchert? And I thought, well, now that's going to be a task. How do you take 40 years of service, dedication, hard work, and boil it down to a few words? Usually when you're confronted with this challenge, you say, well, what can I say about that fella? And you start to build it like this. Well, I'll say this, and I'll say that, and I'll mention this. For me, think about this. I'm in Soldiers Field. It's a big space, right? And I had to pare it down to one seat to get this into the time allotted. Now, I was told by Mr. Gooch that I had the hour and 20 minutes I usually had at the State of the City address. But Ken spent most of the evening disabusing me of that idea. He said, no, people need to be on their way. We need to go home. So I thought my remarks would be there's been plenty of folks up here this evening who have recounted the resume, which is, to say the least, impressive. So I'm not going to recount dates and times and places and events. I think I just want to tell you the story of my relationship with Tom Borchert, which I think the two mayors in the room, Garrigus and Gannett, will agree. I hope that it somehow syncs with their experience with Tom, and it'll be a little bit of an insight of to what every day has been like in Elmhurst, in City Hall, since Tom Borchert was leading our city's organization. It was alluded to just recently that Tom and Tom, two peas in a pod, two guys who know each other very, very well. Nobody could figure out who was the wingman, who was covering who. I was told on more than one occasion by people who didn't agree with something or another that I was doing, well, you and Tom, you guys, you think alike, you finish each other's sentences. Do you know that on that day that I went into Elmhurst City Hall to pick up my petitions to run for public office, on that morning, I had never met Tom Borchert. Now think of that. I lived in town all my life. I grew up here. When he got hired by the city, I was a freshman in college. We had never met. We didn't operate in the same circles. I wasn't a political figure. I was somebody right off the street. I went from downstairs from the clerk's office and went upstairs and asked Dorothy Schmidtke, you may know that name, somebody who's been a fixture around Elmhurst City Hall for a long time, if I could meet Mr. Borchert. And she said, well, yes. What would it be about? And I said, well, I'm going to run for mayor. And she looked at me like, you are? Well, all right, I'll get him. And she goes back and she says, there's some guy out in front. He says he's going to run for mayor. Maybe you should go say hello. So he comes out, and it was pretty much the same thing repeated. Hi, Mr. Borchert, I'm Tom Marcucci. I just picked up the petition. I'm going to run for mayor. And Tom did that thing that, if you know Tom, he's not sometimes at a loss for words, and he just kind of freezes. Now, you know, I got to tell you, he was cordial and polite, but there you have it. It was like, well, that's wonderful. Good luck, fella. Let me know how it comes out. And that was pretty much it. Now, I also want to share something with you, and I've told this from open microphones before, so some of you have heard this before, I apologize, but I was not an elected official before. I was what I like to refer to as an average run-of-the-mill citizen. I grew up in town, I went to IC grade school, I went to York High School, I was just a guy in the neighborhood. And I didn't know any elected officials, none. Didn't know very much about government, but I was like the average person in Elmhurst, and I was absolutely convinced that most of the people who worked for government were second-rate. Think about that. Think about what I just said from an open microphone. People who work in government are people who can't work in the public sector. For some reason, they can't do the job. They get flushed out. They end up working for government. That's what I thought. And I get into Elmhurst City Hall on the first day, and I find Tom Borchert sitting in the city manager's office. And he looks at me, and I think he had kind of the same idea. So who is this guy? I have to deal with these elected officials. They don't. This guy doesn't even know his way around the building. What am I going to do with it? But we started working together that first week. In the first week, two things had happened that changed, I think, first of all, my opinion about Mr. Borchert personally, about my opinion about the people who work for the city, and set us off on a really interesting path, which was really it wasn't an issue of who was the wingman and who was covering who. An understanding of our place in the system. I was going to be an elected official, and he was going to be the city manager, and that was the way it was going to be. And I discovered very early on that the quicker I got out of his way and let him run the city because he knew what he was doing, that I and Elmhurst would be a success. Third day in office. We get in the car, we drive to Springfield, Illinois. It happens to be the DuPage Mayor's Managers Conference drive down. I didn't even know what that meant, the drive down? It's just like the bottoms up. What is a drive down? We're going to Springfield. We're going to lobby for issues. And by the way, I made an appointment for you over at IDOT because if you recall back in those days, a very big issue was the rebuilding of North Avenue. And this had been a thing in the campaign. And it had been a problem, been festering for 32 years. The first reference to the need to rebuild North Avenue in Elmhurst Press was in 1961. This is 1993. And I had developed this argument about how I'm going to go down there and tell those guys they got to refix. That's their road, you got to fix it. People are getting hurt in Elmhurst. Something like 7 or 8 people died on that road in the decade before I was elected. Can you imagine that? It was a danger. Everybody lived along it, walked on, had to cross over it. It was just a mess. We're going to go down there and give that guy a piece of our mind. He says, I made the appointment. I almost fainted. What am I going to do? What am I going to say to this guy? Who is it? What's he do? It's the director of IDOT. I'll hold your hand. We'll get you through it. Okay. We go in to see him. Long story short, and believe it, Bill, I can't shorten the story. We go in there, and he ends up explaining the facts of life to me. Mayor, we just administer federal funds. The state of Illinois is the conduit for federal funds to fix roads. I got to gin up an argument with the feds that's going to allow them to spend the $16 million. You got to make the road safer. So we got to have the left-hand turn lane so people don't keep getting rear-ended, and we got to widen the road. So I start spinning stories like I do, making stuff up on the spot, and I think I got the guy completely captivated in my story about how he says, Tom leans in, he goes, he needs a number. I go, what? He goes, he needs a number. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a story here. He says he needs, and it clicked. I'm talking to Ralph Weiner, who's an engineer. Tom Borchert sitting next to me is an engineer. They speak the same language. I'm speaking Chinese. You got to give the gentleman a number. It'll all work. I go, well, we convened for a second. We said, we're going to let it be his number because then he's going to support it. I said, so you're telling me you need to gin up the argument that this is going to be safer, and that'll allow federal funds to get involved. We got to widen that road. All right, Mr. Werner, the fellow's name, Ralph Werner, what do you need? He goes, what? I said, what's your number? He said, no, I asked you for a number. So what is your number? I'll give you whatever you need. But I'm going to trust you to give me the minimum. I was expecting somewhere in an area of 4 to 8 feet of widening. He took a deep breath. He said, you're trusting me to give you what I need? I said, yeah. He said, 1. 1 foot? He said, yeah, on either side of the line, 6 inches here and 6 inches there, 1 foot, and that was the core widening of North Avenue. We signed the deal that day, third day in office. Borchert did the interpretation and got me through that meeting. That's a fact. That's Wednesday. Friday, he decides to take me on a work of city facilities. That's the city hall. That's the police station. That's the Public Works Department. I'll go, oh, let's go in there. We go in there and we meet people and shake hands, and fellows are walking around and the buildings are like leaking and leaning, and it's like 8 buildings instead of 1, and it was just a mess. And we get to the back and there's rock piles. I go, what are he goes, well, that's the rock piles. I'm sorry, Tom, what do we need rock piles for? He goes, well, that's what we do. It's the Public Works Department. We dig holes, and we dig up dirt, and we have to put it somewhere. We don't want to, if we have to dispose it, we got to pay to dispose it, and then next week when we need them, we have to buy them back. So we have rock piles. Those are the big rocks, those are the little rocks, those are the big. It's absolutely true. I'm like fascinated by all this, really. Then I shocked him. I run up to the top of this rock pile, and I look, I say, come here. And I go down, and the look on Mr. Borchert's face, I will never forget it, is, this guy is loony. What is he doing up on the rock piles? I go, come here, Tom. He comes up. I go, what's that? He goes, well, I don't understand. I said, well, what is that? He goes, well, that's Route 83. I said, what does that make this? He goes, I'm not following you, Mayor. I said, that makes this the front of the property, not the back of the property. You're storing rock piles where we ought to have a shopping center. And to make a long story short, the shopping center at Route 83 and St. Charles Road resulted from that little trip around the city that day. And all the benefits that brought to the city were a result of Tom Borchert doing his due diligence to educate a newbie mayor on the facts and the nuts and bolts of city government. We quickly came to a realization that this is how this was going to work. I was going to be the idea guy, and he was going to make it happen. And part of that included he was also going to disabuse me of some of my dumber ideas, which was fine, because I had some whoppers, to tell you the truth. But I think that's what people want from mayors. They want you to be a leader. They want you to point the direction. They want you to have a vision, but not a hallucination. And so really, virtually all of the different projects that we attempted to do over time worked out, because Tom and his team would disabuse me of whatever goofy idea I had. And there were several, but my point is that it's one of the leadership things at Tom. Think about a city manager who will look the mayor in the eye and say, no. Think about that. Because that mayor and that city council on any given Monday night can take that job just like that. That's the reality of it. And yet he had the faith of his own conviction that he was on solid ground and he would help me through these very, very complex issues, many of which he had faced before, several times before. Things would come up. There was an allusion tonight to the, actually a couple of allusions tonight to the underpass. Right? One time there was somebody who was really giving me kind of a hard time about why the underpass flooded. What, Mayor, you're a knucklehead, the underpass floods. What are you going, you got to stop, your underpass floods. Well, the underpass was conceived when I was, I think, in grade school. I'm not sure. And built when I was away in college. I had absolutely nothing to do with it, but there it was. I'm the mayor, and I've got to explain why the underpass is flooding. And I had it in my head that this was just knowing the way things are in Elmhurst and the good mayors and the good leadership we've had over years, that this must have been known, this must have been predicted, this must have been understood at the time. Now, I could have gone to the Elmhurst Public Library and looked it up. I could have gone to Google and looked it up. I could have called Mayor Fick in Florida and asked him the question, even though we've never met. No, I was able to walk right around the wall into the city manager's office, because there sat the better part at that point of 40 years of institutional memory, and just asked him a question. Did you know the underpass was going to flood, and why did you make it that way? By the way, there's a very good answer to that. Yes, we did. It cost X number of $1 million to build the underpass the way it was. I hope that's not, is that my phone? It's okay. X number of $1 million to build the underpass the way it is, and it cost Y, in addition to X, to make it flood-proof. And they did the research, and they said, well, it's going to flood about once or twice a year for a half an hour to an hour. And if you think about it, a third of that will be in the middle of the night, and we don't want to spend the why, the several $1 million to make it flood-proof. So that was a decision that was made. Now, the point of this whole story is not that decision or even that the underpass floods. The point of the story is that Mr. Borchert was sitting in the chair not 20 feet from me, and he had the answer just like that. The institutional memory was absolutely incredible. And if he didn't have the answer, he could go to somebody on his staff. A sign of leadership is that a good leader surrounds himself with competent people. Now, not only did Tom Borchert have the nerve to stand up to an elected official and say, well, gee, Mayor, maybe you want to do this, do it that way. I mean, his people did the same thing. And there's a lot of folks who work for the city of Elmhurst in the room tonight. I'm not going to get into naming names because I'll leave somebody else. But I will tell you that part of Mr. Borchert's success was his technique of going out and reaching and finding the most competent people he could for the task at hand and putting them in the job and then giving them responsibility to do the job and supervising them, including telling them that, yes, once in a while you have to tell the elected officials, no, I can't tell you how many times I would, thank you. I can't tell you how many times I and other aldermen would just get a flat-out no from the staff. We wanted to do this. No. Well, okay, well, then we'll do it this way. No. Well, why not? Well, because, and then they had the answers, and they would explain it to us, and they helped. Now, think about that. Particularly when you got a new mayor off the street who's never been an elected official before, that saves me from making serious mistakes, doesn't it? I had a guardian angel that was looking over me that said, no, you're near the edge there. You want to step back. This is the way we should do this. I want you to think about this before you go and step off that ledge. This is what's going to happen. So at the end of the day, there was a phrase popped into my head a couple of weeks ago as I was thinking about tonight. When the city lets a contract go, to pave a street or build a sidewalk or some such thing, the contractor is challenged to be responsive and responsible. It's almost illegal. I think it is a legal term. The contractor, whoever wins that bid, has to be responsive and responsible. And I thought, well, gee, those two terms really fit Mr. Borchert's job performance. He was always responsive and always responsible. I'll give you a couple examples. One, when I showed up at the counter, he came right out. He was responsive. In 16 years, I never, ever saw him duck a question from a member of the public, ever. Somebody came unannounced, no appointment, showed up. I got a question for the city manager. Where's the mayor? Well, he's at work. Well, what do you mean he's at work? He was the mayor. Well, no, he's got a regular job. Well, who's next in charge? Well, maybe you want to see the city manager. He would come out of his office dutifully, listen to whatever that issue was, and assure the person that it would get his attention, and he would take care of it. He was as responsive as the day is long. He was also responsible. Mayor DeCiani referred to the events following the flood. Mayor, I'm a little older than you. I was there in 1987. I was in the back of that room watching Mr. Borchert, for lack of a better term, get shellacked for what went on in 1987. Now, listen, you got to know that was a terrible event in the history of this community. People's lives were devastated. Homes were ruined. People lost everything, all of their personal possessions. It was a disaster. And who stood up to that, folks, and heard them out and let them know that their issues were being responded to and listened to, and that everything would be done over the next decade to make sure that that never happened again? Mr. Borchert. You know, we had a heck of a rain about 3 years ago in Elmhurst, almost the same identical rain. The same amount of inches fell in the same place. Up north of Elmhurst came down, that creek stayed in that creek that day. That creek stayed in that creek. And that was, I got applause. When I went over to the quarry, I wasn't in office when Mr. Borchert was there. But I was the symbol of the city of Elmhurst, and the work had been done to make sure that that never happened again. When something very similar happened, which was the event that Mayor DeCiani was referring to, more recently, Tom Borchert, knowing full well what was involved, he did it again. He went out and he stood there and he took it because it was his job to take it, and he understood that it's his job, and that's what leadership is all about. He never, ever turned to a citizen in distress and said, well, you know, the elected officials did it to me. They did it to all of us. They made a silly mistake. They had a bad policy. He understood that his job was to guide us in forming those policies, and when those policies were determined, to enact them and to follow them through, and that included being a stand-up guy and taking response for the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. As the mayor alluded to, parking decks went up, libraries went up, the new Southside Fire Station went up, the Public Works Department went up as a result of the shopping center at Route 83 in St. Charles Road, a new Public Works. So there were all these wonderful things. He's entitled to stand there at the ribbon cutting, but when it was a bad day, Mr. Borchert never, ever for a moment shirked his responsibility. And I think that that's really, really incredible. He is, you need to know, recognized tonight by Mayor Murphy that's a big award he got. I don't know if you folks, I'm going to tell you if you don't know, that's a big deal. That usually goes to governors or legislative leaders when they're leaving office. That is a big deal. To get that award, the Intergovernmental Cooperation Award from the DuPage Mayors and Managers is in fact a big deal. It's very well deserved. I will tell you if you don't know, tell the citizens of Elmhurst as you don't know, that Mr. Borchert is recognized as one of the finest city managers, not in DuPage County, not in Illinois, but in the nation. How do I know that? That's a pretty big statement. And how do I know that? I know that because almost every day he had to field a call or a letter from some headhunter who wanted to take him away to Anaheim, California, or Sausalito, or Albany, New York, or some such place, and he never left. One of the things that you should know about Tom Borchert is that he was totally invested in this community. He lived in his city. A lot of times city managers won't live in the city where they work because they don't want to be a public figure. They want to just have a job. I'm just going to do the job, all right? But Tom was totally invested in our community. He was out and about. He saw what went on, and he heard what went on. When he went to his church, if there was something wrong in the city, he heard about it. If his wife went to the grocery store and there was something wrong in the city, she heard about it. I dare say that his kids would hear about it from time to time. Your dad was in the paper the other day. He did this, he did that. And it affects, it's a family decision. And Mr. Borchert made the right decision. He's going to be invested in this community. He was going to live in Elmhurst, and he was going to serve Elmhurst really 24 hours a day. Unbelievable performance by Tom Borchert. Now, this is the point in the conversation where I would usually reach into my pocket here, and I'd come up with a proclamation, right? But I've been defrocked. They don't let me do that anymore. It took a little while to get used to. I'd call up Dorothy and say, Dorothy, could you whip up one of those proclamations for me? She'd go, no. You're not the mayor anymore. So I talked to the mayor about it, and I said, Mayor, I can't stand there with my arm swinging and I want to give Mr. Borchert something of significance that says how important he is to me, to all the mayors that he served, all the councils that he served, and as I already mentioned, all the people of the city of Elmhurst, many of whom have never met Tom Borchert. His dedication for 40 years, 27 years as city manager, has put this city on the map. I spent about an hour and a half today digging around my house looking for the front page of that Chicago magazine where we were declared the best suburb in Chicagoland. Mr. Borchert. That stuff doesn't happen overnight. That was Mr. Borchert. So I was going to give him that. I was going to, sign it and say, Tom, here's this. You earn this certainly as much as all the elected officials. But realizing that Tom is leaving us, I thought that I had actually a very nice and appropriate gift for Tom Borchert. No, this is good. This is good, guys. Now, his children are laughing at me. This is the key to the city of Elmhurst. Now, what they might be laughing at is that if Dorothy knows this, I know this, Mayor, maybe you know this now too, don't you? This is actually a bottle opener. But it says, key to the city of Elmhurst. Now, why is this significant tonight? There's a lot of awards that have been given to Mr. Borchert this evening, a lot of plaques and proclamations, and they all recognize work well done. There's Lifetime Achievement Awards, there's plaques, there's medals, there's all kinds of things you can get. A key to the city is kind of a special thing for an evening like tonight. The key to the city concept comes out of medieval Europe. And it was given to people who were leaving a village or a city, or more accurately, a castle. Now, if you think about it, in medieval Europe, every night, part of the job of the keeper of the keep was to lock the city up tighter than a drum. They'd literally pull up the drawbridge and lock all the doors. But there were certain people who, when they left, for whatever, they came to the end of their career, they came to the end of time, they got a job transfer, you know, from Bavaria to Tuscany. When they left, they wanted to make sure that that person knew they were always welcome back in that community. Mr. Borchert will always be welcome back in that community. In the medieval days, the keys actually worked. They went in a side door of the castle, and they opened it up, and you could get in. So this is my way of expressing to Mr. Borchert, and I think I'm not only speaking for all the elected officials in the room, past and present, but all of the citizens of our fair city, that you will always be remembered here. Your legacy lives on in the structure and fabric of our community, and you are welcome back here anytime. God bless you and your family.
Before we reach out to our honoree for his thoughts, I have a program surprise for him and for you. Please welcome Chris Borchert and his supporting cast for a surprise family tribute.
Well, first I'd like to, thank Ken for warning me to go to the bathroom before Mayor Marcucci spoke. And second, apparently none of the 4 children have clearly done enough in our lives. But for those of you who really know my dad, he's really not the most comfortable in being the center of attention or for taking credit for anything. So I don't think this is the easiest night for him. And seeing as he didn't know this was coming, I'm sure he's even more uncomfortable, so hopefully we'll be able to embarrass him a little bit. And as this isn't a eulogy, I don't want to be up here too long, but on behalf of all of the kids, we did want to say a few words on behalf of my dad. My dad has always been a morning person, and so growing up, he was always up and ready to go by 6 a.m. and would not stop talking to all of us, trying to get us ready and excited to attack the day ahead. And all we wanted to do was eat cereal in silence. You know, he'd walk the dogs, eat breakfast, read the paper, get to work between 6:30 and 7, and do all that he could to make Elmhurst a better place. Throughout all of his time spent at the office, he rarely missed one of our soccer games, basketball games, track meets, cross-country races, or volleyball matches. He'd be there to cheer us on and then head back to the office until dinner, where he recognized how important it was to eat as a family. On some nights, he would then have to go back to the office for more meetings, as has been alluded with the city council meetings. Otherwise, he'd be at the table and help us with our various homework assignments. On the weekends, when it was supposedly his time to relax, he would drive us all over the state for various sports tournaments or work on a seemingly endless honey-do list of projects around the house. Build a deck, resod the backyard, install a patio, reshingle the roof, painting, wallpapering, you name it. Or my mom would give him a shopping list, and he would take off for the store. And then after he got home with whatever happened to be on sale that day, he would turn around and go back to the store for the correct items on that list. And like Pastor Mike alluded to, he even uses some vacation days to go on mission trips through church. He definitely has a servant's heart, always does what he can, and certainly leads by example. But we were always amazed at how hard he worked, whether at the office or at home, and yet he still had the energy to give himself fully to our family and have some great moments like these. Guess notice the mustache. Now, over the past year or two, his energy and enthusiasm towards work hasn't changed. He has continued to give 100% to the city to continue to make Elmhurst so great. But his energy level outside of work isn't quite the same anymore. As you can see in a few of these recent pictures of Dad being the life of the party. You knew those were going to be used at some point. Dad, you are a great leader, gracious and honest, and always deflecting the credit when things go well, while willing to accept responsibility if they don't. You've been an amazing example to your family on how to work as hard as you can with integrity, to help those that you are able to help, and to keep a close-knit Christian family at home. We are incredibly proud of you and your years of service to Elmhurst. We love you very much. And all of your kids and grandkids are excited to spend more time with you while you're awake. Congratulations. Now, as we've probably all heard enough about him and his accomplishments over the past 40 years, it's probably time to turn it over to the man himself. Dad?
Wow.
I got to say, back in the day, the mustache was about as cool as you could get. I mean, really. Now, I am so profoundly, profoundly, profoundly grateful for your generous expressions of appreciation and for your collective presence this evening. In fact, I'd be speechless if I had not spent the last 40-plus years listening attentively to mayors and making notes in case I had the chance to be here. So having served, as you have heard, under 4 mayors, all of which are very comfortable in front of a microphone and not so prone to share it. You just heard from Mayor number 3 and Mayor number 4. I'm sure you can understand that I did not have a lot of opportunities to be at a podium or behind a microphone like this, so better late than never. Don't hold me to a timetable. I suggest that I do have some time due here. Let me begin by thanking Marilyn Gaston, Mike Kopp, Bill Gooch, Mayor DeCiani, and my pastor, Mike Taburin, for being part of the program. To Brian Berghager, Ken Bartels, President Klein, and the entire Heritage Center Board and its many volunteers, I am truly honored by your hours and hours of preparation for this wonderful event. Mayor Marcucci, I said thanks to you 2 years ago in the same place, after which you left me for greener pastures and more freedom. I'm kind of looking forward to that myself now. But thanks again, Tom, for our time together, for your more than kind, I think sometimes exaggerated remarks on my behalf, but mostly for your friendship and confidence in me. So I asked myself, how did I get here, and specifically up here? As retirement approaches, still 4 weeks to go, I've spent some time reflecting on this question. This journey begins, of course, with my family. My mom and dad were and still are role models for me. My brother Bill and I were raised in a Christian home with solid values, a strong work ethic, and with lots of love. Bill is here tonight with my sister-in-law, Karen. Growing up, silly Billy and I taught each other quite a bit, most of which I'm not going to reveal tonight. However, I do think it's important to mention that Bill did teach me how to play in a sandbox. I never appreciated how much I would need those skills, nor how often I would use them in my public service career at City Hall. Also here this evening, you've heard are my children, now all young adults. Katie and her husband Justin, Chris and his wife April. Chris made a lot of stuff up earlier. Mary Beth and her husband Joel, and our youngest Ryan. Those 4 Borchert kids all went K through 12 at District 205. And I gotta say, a special thanks to Trilby Porter, who's here, who was the extra special kindergarten teacher that taught those 4 kids all they needed to know to be positive in life going forward. But the Borchert kids all went through all of what they went through, and they never complained about being the manager's kid, which I'm sure was more than a bit of a drag at times. And maybe more importantly, over the past 30 years, you've heard, you have all kept me balanced, grounded, challenged, and focused on matters of significant import away from the office. And applicable to tonight, you kept me very committed to persevere through just about any adversity at work at City Hall in order to keep my job and keep my income, which was very necessary to make sure we made it through 16 years of tuition and housing payments at Calvin College. My biggest thank you, though, is to my bride, Joni, my best friend. My confidant, my partner, she sacrificed many hours, worked through innumerable parental and family issues as a single parent, and endured way too many lonely nights also so I could serve the city. If my list were complete at this point, I would be a very blessed man. but I would not still be at this podium tonight. There's much more to the story of how I arrived here. And that part of the story includes really all of you in this room tonight. You have all played a role, some bigger than others, but you have all played a role in helping me to get to here. So for the rest of the story, he couldn't be here tonight, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and it's my college fraternity brother and roommate, Billy Palmer. Yep, that's the son of the first Elmhurst city manager, Bob Palmer. He's the guy that informed me and then encouraged me to apply for a job in Elmhurst one day as we were both complaining about our uninspiring first jobs out of Valparaiso University's College of Engineering. Soon thereafter, as an Elmhurst employee, I quickly learned that city government is a very complicated but team event. It's not a singles or even a doubles event, and those that attempt to play it that way never successfully make it to the finish line. So my success has been possible only through the dedicated and generous people whom I have worked with over many, many years. And that starts with the volunteers. Every year there are 17 I would call super volunteers, 17. They didn't just offer volunteer to help. They first had to spend time and money and get themselves elected so that they could serve 4-year minimum sentences and come to work on Monday nights and toil and get more criticism than credit. They worked every year with about another 100 other volunteers on various boards and commissions. The Elmhurst community should be as indebted to all of you as I am. Without your strategic thinking, commitment to good policy development, trust in staff to handle details, and your belief in a character counts foundation of values to support it all, Elmhurst would not be the quality community that it is. It would not be the best that it could be, and it would not look like the Elmhurst we know and love today. Thank you to all of you. What's left is to the rest of the story. What's left are the other team members. My family away from home for 40 years. The over 300 full-time professionals and part-time employees who all made a difference every day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, year in, year out. They deliver the services that make Elmhurst the community we love to call home. City employees, they developed a mission statement supported by a list of core values that drive that agenda every day. This foundation fuels the Elmhurst local governmental service delivery machine that is, frankly, the envy of most other communities in the Chicago metro region. There isn't time to mention the entire team, but I must say thank you and job well done, and I will miss you mightily. To the current management team that supports me. Assistant Manager Kopp, Chief Neubauer, Marilyn Gaston, Tom Trozine, Mike Hughes, Brian Berghager, Valerie Johnson, Than Werner, Bruce Dubiel, Mike Stenson, Marilyn Boria, and the very important City Hall support team in the City Hall offices, Dorothy Schmidtke, Pat Dungy, Aaron Vanderwall. I would not be here if you weren't there. Thanks so much. Two other groups I've got to mention because they provided balance, humor, camaraderie, and professional support on one hand, and spiritual support and important support on the other hand. And there, on the first hand, my city manager peers and their professional support organizations, which are bar none, absolutely fantastic. And on the second hand, my church community, known affectionately as YPC. Thank you so much. And it was actually a Christmas present from my buddy, Mr. Palmer, that is the community story that is in the program today that does describe a lot about what a good community is. It's getting late, but I want to at least go quickly through some reflections of actual work over the past 40 years. Some highlights, maybe some challenges that I think would be appropriate just for balance. The thread that I see through these reflections as I think back is the same is the answer that I provided to a question often posed to me by college students or kindergartners, two ends of the education spectrum. The question, what's the best part of your job, Mr. Borchert? And what's the worst part of your job, Mr. Borchert? My answer, and that thread that I see in career highlights and career challenges, is the people. The people. The people I have met along the way have both been wonderful and, frankly, unbelievably challenging at times, and sometimes it's even the same person. I don't want to get into the challenges because it might burn some bridges, and I've said never burn a bridge. But two stories that maybe explain some of the people challenges in a little more humorous fashion. The first story, I'm sure some of you have you ever had an argument with somebody where you know you're right and you know the other person is wrong, but you still have an argument? Like, phone call, it goes through, you know, and Mayor Marcucci said, you know, Borchert, he always did what he needed to do. So if those phone calls can't help, they'd eventually end up where the buck stops at the city manager's office. So there's a lady, and she says, I am really upset, I can't believe it, but how do you explain that my hot water isn't hot? So I tried to patiently explain that in the basement there would be a hot water heater, and it's not the city's, it's yours. She wouldn't buy it at all. It was the city's fault, and I don't know, I did something to get off the telephone with her, and she still probably thinks that the city makes the hot water for her house. I don't know. Second story, and it was a lady. I think it's coincidental. I think it was coincidental. She, through the whole system again, she says, it is so wrong what the city did in my basement. You know, the basement again. Please explain to me. Well, I saw the meter book, the meter reader book. I asked about it. I got the meter reader book, and it's proof. Proof of what, ma'am? Well, your employees are having sex in my basement. So I'm not sure if I should be proud of the employees or if I should dig deeper. So I decide, well, I'll try to figure out what's really happening. She, you know, to make a long story short, it's getting late. I saw it, the meter book, it said sex, and there was an arrow to the corner of my basement. I said, well, I think that was probably the meter reader's notes that the water meter is in the southeast corner of your basement. She didn't buy it. She still thinks the meter reader's having sex in her basement. So anyway, as to career highlights, and in particular from my perspective as first an engineer and then a manager, really all of the infrastructure projects completed over the years would be incredible highlights. As some have mentioned, over the years, the entire infrastructure has been rebuilt. Police station, 3 fire stations, one of them twice. That's really showing, I guess, my age, that we did it once and then had to do it again. Wastewater treatment plant, a city garage, a bunch of lift stations, a library, which we supported. It was really a library board on the frontage of that issue, but the city was in a support position. And some of the firsts that were completed by the city of Elmhurst were significant relative to the accomplishments. The flood control project along Salt Creek, Lake Michigan water to DuPage County, first through the Tree Towns Water Commission, then through the DuPage Water Commission. Elmhurst is a first and a leading initiative driver with the DuPage Communications Group, the DuPage Metropolitan Enforcement Group, I mentioned the DuPage Water Commission. The city was one of the first to tackle the incredible complicated task of constructing an underpass through the middle of a suburban community. The intergovernmental collaboration with the Park District, the opportunity to work with them, the school district, the library, the institutions, including the college and the hospital and the museums, wonderful highlights. Very pleased to be a part of that in whatever fashion, but it was and is the people that made it all happen and make the infrastructure projects worthwhile. These successes are not my successes, they are truly community successes, and they are so many that at times I really believe that the community takes those successes for granted as normal for Elmhurst. I know, though, they're not normal, they are exceptional, and they're exceptional because of this Elmhurst community of citizens and committed folks that are exceptional. That makes it happen. Going forward for me, my plans are still in a bit of a rough draft form, but are summarized as vacationing with my family, maybe just my wife Joni, maybe with the kids and the grandkids, about halftime, volunteering for church, which I find is a very valuable enterprise about halftime, and I hope to be a consultant about halftime. I know I got to work out that arithmetic, the time allocation, but I'm used to stretching things a bit. Going forward for Elmhurst, I believe that the foundation of positive culture, a strong work ethic, and the support and expectations of a character counts community will surely provide, if not a guarantee of future success, surely the highest probability of success for any community that there can be. St. Paul, in his words of encouragement to Matthew, suggests that it is a wise man that builds his house on a rock and a foolish man that builds his house on shifting sands. Elmhurst is building its community on rock-solid foundations. This is manifested in Elmhurst's status as a character counts community, and its objective as a community that really walks that walk and doesn't just talk that talk. My hopes and dreams for you individually, and frankly my prayer for you, is that you find a similar rock-solid spiritual foundation in your personal life. I would not be here at this podium without your help. I surely wouldn't be here without the foundation and helping hand, without, frankly, being carried through some of the worst times by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. As President Teddy Roosevelt said one Labor Day, and I'll quote, "Far and away, the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing." That is the prize that Elmhurst gave me 40 years ago, and I am and will be forever grateful. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a reminder of the video tribute opportunity in the corner on behalf of the Heritage Foundation and the Borchert family. Thank you all for being here this evening. Good night.
The Elmhurst Historical Museum, located in downtown Elmhurst, is proud to present award-winning exhibits for visitors of all ages. Our Adult Tea Time Talk series, family programs, and special events make learning about history interesting and fun. Admission is free, and on-site parking is available. Visit the Elmhurst Historical Museum soon. Call us today, or go to our website for the latest program details.
We live in some of the best communities in Illinois. We care about our neighbors. We work hard to preserve our quality of life. But there's something we forget about in Elmhurst. A river runs through it, and it's up to us to protect it. Our storm drains flow to Salt Creek, and that means our harmful waste does too. So try using fewer chemicals on your lawn. Avoid leaking fluids from cars. And grow native flowers and plants to absorb more rainwater. Don't muddy the waters. Do your part to clean up Salt Creek.